I want to thank Arthur for including me in this conference. I consider it an honor. Listening to Larry, I decided what you're going to get is the little old lady that followed the preacher. But anyway, in 1972, Craig Ramey gave me a part-time job as a research associate at the Frank Porter Graham then Center. And I was to be the evaluator of his new study, the Abecedarian Project. And the first thing I did was talk to and give IQ tests to all the mothers, and my other job was to do the evaluations of the children. So I was supposed to be an independent evaluator. I didn't go in the classrooms. I didn't plan the program. I didn't do the program. The mother came with the child to see me. We didn't want the teachers to see what I did. So I was supposed to be sort of aside. It doesn't help that I started driving the van that picked them up within a couple of weeks, but that didn't last long. What I'm going to tell you, the data that I mostly know has a heavy reliance on standardized measures of intelligence or cognition. I don't like the word IQ anymore. The job really took me over, and it's been 43 years that I've been doing it, and I'm having a very hard time backing off, but I'm trying. Let's see, page down. Okay. This study is unique in the 3 that we're talking about because it was the only one that began with infants and the only one that had full-day programs year-round. So it's the most intense in that way. The preschool was from infancy to kindergarten entry, and then we had a second phase that lasted 3 years, the first 3 years in primary grades. And assignment was random in both phases. So in the end, we had the 4 groups you see there, treated in both phases, or treated just in preschool alone, or treated just in primary grades alone, or not treated. And I'll get rid of that right now by telling you that there are no detectable effects of that second phase of treatment on long-term outcomes. What I'm going to do first is show you the adult outcomes that I'm basing this on, and show you what our data look like either at age 21 or at age 30. In cognitive development, employment and income, mental health, and physical health. We actually have one randomized study of biomarkers of physical health, and that's the last study that I did. This is our intellectual test performance at age 21, and these are standardized Wechsler scores, and they're arrayed by gender, and the purple bars are treated group always, and the blue bars are the control group always. And I would argue that for lots of years we didn't see this kind of a gender difference, but at 21 we do see it, and I think that is something I want to explore in more detail before I die. Here's achievement scores, individually administered by us, standardized tests of reading and mathematics achievement at age 21. Again, you see that boost for girls, but we have a significant effect, so we don't have a fade out. This is educational attainment by 30, and this is what I call degree years, but meaning that college gets so many, and graduate school gets so many, high school gets so many. We don't have a high school effect. We have a college effect. This is our economic outcomes at age 30, and what this says is man's world. Notice that the men are earning more money. The treated men are earning the most. But it's a man's world. And this is the amount of hours per week worked, so it's sort of full-time work. And again, you see this male effect. This is not a significant effect, but it's a trend for males to work more hours. And interestingly enough, the group that works the least hours are the treated females. And I have some speculations about why that might be. And here's our famous finding about the health as a result of the preschool treatment. And what this, I'm only going to show you one blood pressure thing because they are mirror images. This is systolic blood pressure. And what you see is that treated males had significantly lower blood pressure. And that's blood. That it can't lie. Well, actually, it's a machine. And this, to try to deal with mental health kinds of things, we gave them the brief symptom inventory when they were 21. At that age, we saw a significant effect for treated females to have lower rates of depressive symptoms compared to everybody else. But I have to tell you that nobody was in the clinical range at that time, so this is just, they reported fewer depressive symptoms. At 30, we gave them the Achenbach, so these are externalizing scores. Everything here is also below the clinical range, and there's really not a treatment effect here. But more about that later. Now, here's the bad news about Abecedarian. All the stuff we saw and all that wonderful stuff about cost savings, it's a whopping gender effect here. The girls are not in trouble for the most part. The males are. What my metric here is, did you have, and this is self-reported when they are 30, did you have any citation at any point? And so that whopping 60%, it's a yes for treated males. But the control males are not far behind. But the gender effect is whopping, the treatment effect is not. Now, looking for mediators, and I want to acknowledge that my collaboration here with Peg Birchnall and Yi Pan, who helped me work on this, but we decided to look for mediators. We wanted to be something that was related to the treatment, so we wanted something that was measured close to the end of treatment. And so we decided to look for whether we had effects on parenting, whether we had effects on the children's cognitive skills, whether we had affected other aspects of their development, like their on-task behavior, their self-concept, or their behavioral adjustment, or did we affect their health? And I've given that one away already. So first we looked at effects on parents. We measured parental attitudes. This is Earl Schaefer's Perry. One of the things that the research has shown is that this sort of sit down, shut up, and do what I tell you authoritarian parent tends to depress children's school performance. I didn't really realize this, but we actually had a little treatment effect on this kind of attitude, particularly in the mothers of girls. I don't know what that means, but since I'm looking at everything as a function of gender here. So we did somewhat lower that tendency in the parents. But then what about the quality of the home environment? We were in those homes. I was one of the people that went, 6, 18, 30, 54 months. So we visited in the homes frequently over the years and scored the Caldwell and Bradley's home when we got there. We don't see any effect of the child being in the treatment program or the control program on the scores that we got in those home visits. So there's no evidence that treatment changed the home situations. It looks like it did, but none of that works out. So let's look at how we affected the children's development. Okay, here are our cognitive or IQ test scores as a function of gender. And as you can see, at the point that they departed the program when they're 5 years old, the treated group is up at the national average. There is regression toward the mean over the years. The final one, this is not a true scale. The final score on there was obtained when they were 21 years old. In the meantime, we have something at 8, 12, 15, and 21. And the interesting thing to me about this is it erodes, but you never lose your treatment effect. It's not great big by the time you're 21, but it is still statistically significant. So it didn't fade out, Larry. But what we do have, what we do have is that the treated girls are far outscoring the control girls, and the treated and control males are very similar at 21. So I really want to look at that in more detail now that I know what happened and see if I can see where it begins to happen and why. Okay, did we change their on-task behavior? Surprisingly enough, this is a significant finding, and these are toddlers. And the person who gave them, their 18-month-old Bailey, completed the infant behavior record at the end of that procedure. And so a number of people might have scored this thing, but you were looking at whether the child was sort of on task, whether he manipulated objects, whether he seemed interested in people, but the way he approached the task is what this is telling you. And there is a treatment effect here. The children in the treatment group were more engaged with the task when they were 18 months old. That's pretty young. So it's a significant effect, and again, the girls scored higher than the boys. Did we change their early verbal skills? Did we ever? That is a very large effect size. The McCarthy, I thought that was 30 months. It turns out it's 54 months, but same difference. And the WIPSI score at WIPSI verbal IQ when they're 5 years old, yes, we greatly enhance their verbal skills. Now, we don't have good measures of executive functioning, and we looked at one. We decided that maybe we could force the WIPSI block design to be a measure of executive functioning. At least you have to concentrate. You have to sort of see how things work. You have to keep your mind on it. There's a trend there for the treatment effect to be better. Again, the girls are outdoing everybody, but keep that in mind too. Now, in trying to fit this into Arthur's framework, I tried to think, what can we say about school and the effect of the school on the kids? And the one thing that occurred to me that let me just say that these children mostly went to Chapel Hill Carborough schools, which is a university town with not a real diverse population. It's sort of bimodal. The typical student in that school system is a very bright child. And so we don't have, and this is sort of a stable population, so they don't move around from school to school within a big city. That just sort of didn't happen. I don't mean it never happened, but it didn't happen much. So we couldn't do that. But I thought, what about what the teachers thought about them when they got to school? Teacher perceptions are supposed to be really important. And we gave everybody the classroom behavior inventory. That's something the teacher fills out, and Earl Schaefer was instrumental in doing those. And he had the teachers do this in the fall of it, in the winter and the spring, the whole first 3 years. And I'm going to talk about the teachers' perceptions when the children first got there, because I think that might be the most important. And Earl asked the teachers on that instrument to rate. It's not a score, it's just the teacher's perception of, is this child bright? Yes. Again, there is a treatment effect there. The teachers saw the treated children, remember the blue bars, those children were seen as brighter by their teachers when they first encountered them. What about on-task behavior? I thought, knowing what I knew about baby task behavior, that this was going to fall through. Didn't. Okay, nothing there. And this is a rating of independence, and I have to say that Peg did this analysis, and she has a way of putting several things together, but a high score is supposed to be the good side on this slide. Control girls outdo everybody. So there's a treatment effect, but not what you might think. Okay, now let's talk about the children's health for a minute. This is a look at a body mass index when the children are 5 years old. And guess what? You can already see that the treated little boys are looking different from everybody else. And I've thought and thought and thought about why that might be, given that if you just look at the BMIs, all of them are well down there where they ought to be. Look along the side there. Those are not out of the normal range at all. But the treated boys were the leanest. Okay, now, thinking about the Chicago predictors and where we showed treatment effects, certainly we did in cognitive advantage, higher IQs, more years of academic education. What were the mediators for that? The earlier IQ tests and the early verbal IQ skills, and I can't say verbal skills too loudly. And another analysis that we did trying to see what accounted for our age 21 IQ, when you put the early verbal skills in, all the variance is soaked up. So that's a very key thing that we did. We do see some gender-specific differences in adults, and the mediation of the outcomes is much stronger in the women than in the men, for what I'm going to show you. Social adjustment, no effect on crime, nothing predicted. Mental health, treated females had lower scores, I've told you that, but we don't see a mediator there of anything else down the road. Toddler task orientation actually mediated externalizing T-scores for females. Who knew? I mean, it may be fluky, but it's in there. Child motivations, because we saw that nice effect on babies. We do see that carries through and predicts cognitive functioning in males and in their academic scores. I said males, I mean females. It also predicted that lower externalizing T-score. And for the males, we actually got a long-term prediction of their earnings at age 30. So something that we did back there is carrying through. School support, teachers saw these children as brighter, I've told you that, and their positive perceptions were related to the long-term outcomes in their educational attainment and adult scores. The other mediators that we examined, and there's one other bit of bad news that I have to tell you, and that is that, go back to those fall of kindergarten teacher perceptions and ratings, they also rated, this is a composite score based on where we took the teacher's rating of hostility and subtracted, I forget which way it goes, but it's a bipolar thing. Considerateness is on one pole and hostility is on the other. And this is what I'm going to tell you is a combination of those, but hostility wins, and the treatment effect there is for the treated kids. So their teachers saw them as a little hard to handle when they first got there. But that doesn't predict anything down the road. Parenting, nothing we knew about parenting predicts our outcomes. We measured the children's self-esteem. We gave them harders when they were 8, when they were 12, well, when they were 12 and 15, and we gave them something else that sort of looks at locus of control or self-efficacy when they were 15. I just really thought things like that were going to predict adult long-term outcomes, and so I put so many of them in those follow-up studies. Nothing. It just didn't. Maybe it's the measurement. I don't know what it is, but it didn't work. And the teacher ratings of independence in the classroom didn't predict either. Okay, so what accounts for our long-term outcomes? Early enhancement of verbal skills. I think that is really the take-home message here. The enhancement of verbal development is what led to that. And educational attainment at age 30. Something about what we did to enhance the on-task engagement of those toddlers seems to have made an important difference. And I want to tell you something that Peg said. Peg also did a lot of the Baileys. I did a lot of them. I don't recall particularly noticing, but she said that she had begun to notice that by the time the children were that old, that there were lots of kids that you couldn't engage in a task. You could try to get them to do or look at or whatever, the way you do with a baby to try to see how they can manipulate and figure things out. Some of the kids at 18 months forget it. I mean, they might put it in their mouth, they might throw it, they might do their own thing. They don't do what you want them to. But she begun to notice that the treated children were a little more tractable, a little more interested, a little more willing to follow directions and that sort of thing. And it was reflected on all those different people who rated how they acted in that situation. We don't see our WIPSI block design predicted one better academic score in adulthood, but we can't really say we see a lot of things about executive functioning. So our take-home message is what he said. It seems to have been the enhancement of the children's cognitive functioning. And I would emphasize that what we really did was we gave them the verbal tools to make it. And I think that to make it in school, and a lot in today's world, you really have to be able to think in words, to manipulate in words, to reason in words. And I think that we enhance that in these children. Thank you.